Hi, I'm Julio Ramon here at Ikan, and today we're going to talk about balancing the MS1 3-axis gimbal stabilizer. So we have here the MS1, and we're going to talk about how to set it up and properly balance the camera that you have. Like we have today, the Sony a7S II and the Sony a6300. Now, to balance this, we set this on the Ikan dual grip handles. This system here not only allows you to add dual grips to it, it also has a nice table stand. It makes it a lot easier to balance. You don't have to fumble around with it with just a single handle. So, we're going to start with the Sony a7S II. First, what we'll do is we have to mount the quick release plate. So we'll take the camera. Now make sure you take the lens caps off because it'll throw off your balance. So let's go ahead and mount the quick release plate. Now for the MS1, you don't want to tighten it down. Keep it loose to start off because we're going to need it loose in order to balance it later on when we mount it onto the MS1. So now that we're loose, we can move it around. Let's go ahead and place it on the MS1. As you can see here, I actually have it upside down. And you can easily tell if you see the logo on the Ikan side, if that's upside down, flip it around. There we go. Now we're on the right side. So let's go ahead and slide in. Okay. Now, the camera's loose. This is the point where you want to balance the camera. It wants to roll left. It's falling forward. So clearly you just have to play with it. So the fact that the camera's sliding forward and to the side means we have to move to my right and back on the gimbal. So let's slide it back. Slide this over to the right. And patience is key. Okay. Messed up a little bit. There we go. Looks like we're balanced here. Now, when you reach this position, go ahead and lock the quick release plate down by turning the knob on the bottom. Lock it into place. That's going to make sure that we've locked this balance forward and back. We're secure there. Now, the camera can still slide left and right, as you can see, since we're still loose down there. So get it back into center, balance it, and once you find that balance, hold it, flip it, take your flathead, and through a slot here at the bottom, there's an opening where you can finish off and tighten the quick release plate down. There we go. And after you do that, check your balance again. You might throw it off when you're tightening it, so you may have to, play with this area a little bit, loosen it, adjust it, lock it back down. But it looks like we got it here. Nice and balanced. We can tilt it at a 45-degree angle, and it keeps its balance. It doesn't move anywhere. Now, one thing with this camera, as you can see, it can't tilt back. The eyepiece here seems to rub in to the back of the motor. The camera's balanced, but this little piece here, it kind of gets in the way. Now, what we can do is we can take this rubber eyepiece off, since you won't actually be using it. Just remember to put it somewhere safe in your camera bag so you won't lose it. So we can take that piece off, and that gave us just enough clearance so we can get that full range of motion back. And there we are, we're balanced. You can turn it on. And there we go. We have a working MS1 gimbal. Now next, what I want to show you is how to balance a camera like the A6300. So let's go ahead and take this off. Now as you clearly see, the size difference between the two cameras. They both work on the MS1, but they're not going to balance the same. And I'll show you that in a minute. So now that we removed the quick release plate from the A7S II, we are going to attach it to the Sony A6300. Now, again, remember the lens caps. They throw off your balance, so let's take that off. Now, we will attach the quick release plate to the camera here. Again, remember, keep the plate loose. Don't lock it down just yet. You need to have that movement so you can balance it. So keep it loose. Okay, now that we did that, let's mount it on to the MS1. Okay. Now we're on the MS1. Now here, everything's loose, it's open. We can slide forward, back, side to side. So we want to balance it, by making the necessary adjustments that we need. So right now we're falling over to the left. Now let's slide it over to the right. Okay. That looks good. It's tilting up just a little bit, so I'm going to push it forward very slightly to get that nice level balance. So that looks good. Looks like we're balanced. Now that we reach this position, let's lock it into place in the bottom. Remember, you're still loose, so try not to take your hand off the camera. Hold on to it until it's 100% secure. So now that we're locked at the bottom, we need to tighten that bottom screw up. So we'll take our screwdriver, reach in here. And there we go. Now, one thing about this camera, as you can see, it looks balanced, but it's actually not. And I'll show you why. When you tilt this camera up, the camera falls forward. It doesn't stay still. It's because it's not balanced. It may look balanced here, but when you lift it up, the camera is not balanced according to the height. The camera needs to rise up more. That's why there's too much weight towards the bottom. That's why it falls down. So we need to shift the weight up in order for this camera to stay still. So how do we do that? The way we do that is by adding this riser plate to the bottom of the camera. This will raise the camera up and it'll give us a more even distribution of the weight so we can balance this camera. So we're going to remove this and add the riser plate. So now that we remove the quick release plate, we are going to mount the riser plate. So let's lay the camera down and mount that. So I mounted the riser plate, and the way I mounted it for this camera, I shifted it all the way over to one side, and now we still have these points here so we can mount the quick release plate. Now, the position that you mount this riser plate, it's going to depend on the camera. You have to take into consideration that adding this piece will change the weight of the entire camera. So you want to find a nice position where you think it will help balance the camera you're using. So I chose this position because I think it distributes the weight nicely for when we mount it on the MS1. So let's move forward and I'll show you. So now we'll mount the quick release plate for this camera onto this third mount here. Remember, we're going to keep this loose so we can balance it. Okay, let's bring in the MS1. We'll slide this into place. Okay, now here we will make our adjustments to find our balance. The camera's falling back, so we want to push it forward. Okay, and the camera's falling to my right, so we'll push it left. Getting there. Camera's still tilted up a little too high, so we'll slightly push it forward just to have a nice level camera. Looks like we found our balance here. So we'll go ahead and lock the quick release plate underneath. And we will tilt the camera to lock the quick release plate to the camera. Now, as you can see here, you can't access the screw from this window here. So what we're going to have to do in this situation is we're going to have to open the camera, the quick release plate back up. We will slide this down and now tighten it back into place. There we go. Now that we do that, we'll have to double check our balance again. Push it forward. There it is. Lock it down. Now we're good to go. So now the reason we put on that riser plate is because we now have a more balanced camera. It looks balanced from this angle, and it also looks balanced when we tilt it up. As you can see, it holds its position a lot better than it did without that riser plate. We could place it at a 45-degree angle. We have a nice balanced camera. So depending on what camera you have, the smaller, shorter ones like the A6300 will typically require a riser plate. Larger ones like the A7S II, they don't need it. But in this case, we needed it, and it helped us achieve a nice, balanced MS1. So there you have it. For more videos and information, visit us at icancorp.com. I'm Julio Ramon. Thanks for watching.